Welcome to Scale Without Chaos, the podcast for growth-focused leaders who are tired of scaling their businesses the hard way. Each week, you'll hear the real stories, the messy parts, the proven strategies that help leaders grow without burning out their team or themselves. And yes, you'll definitely hear a few spicy takes along the way. If you're building something that matters and you're ready for smarter systems, better people ops, and fewer fires to put out, you're in the right place. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen, follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram at Scale Without Chaos, and check out our newsletter for insights you won't find anywhere else. And now, this week's episode. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Scale Without Chaos. I'm your host, Samantha Riel, and today I am joined by, honestly, one of my very favorite people to have marketing conversations with, Christian Radley.
Yes, and it's a pleasure to be on here, Sam. So let me introduce myself. Yes, I'm Christian. I co-founded Ziggy. Ziggy, for those that don't know, I'm a demand gen agency, and we help B2B SaaS and enterprise companies scale revenue and reduce customer acquisition costs with demand gen programs. And my role inside Ziggy, I kind of play across multiple disciplines. But one of those, the disciplines that I work across are, I lead the new business function across the agency alongside a one-man sales team outside of me. I run the strategy side of things for Ziggy. So across all of the clients that we operate, I kind of set the strategies and make sure that all of the performance that we're driving for the customers that we work with are hitting targets aligned to the broader business goals that we're trying to work towards. And also I lead the data function, which is essentially a team of data engineers. And the goal of the data team is to join marketing initiatives and the data, marketing data with sales data. So this kind of gives us this joined up view that helps us understand, of all of the initiatives that we're running, which are actually impacting revenue, where do we need to iterate and improve? So that's kind of my role and remit across the agency and a little bit about what Ziggy does.
And it's really not fair to ask you to summarize everything that you do in just a quick statement like that, because I have been on the receiving end of one of those beautiful data presentations that you create. And I can tell you it's next level. So it's absolutely next level in terms of the information that you can get out of just what's readily available in the systems and making the different correlations it's beautiful. Beautiful stuff.
Thank you, Sam. I appreciate that.
And I know that you and I could get into a million different topics today, and so we'll try to keep this as concise as possible. But what I wanted to chat with you about is something that I think will be really interesting to the viewers of this podcast, because as you know, we talk everything that we talk about is about scaling. It's about growing effectively, not burning out yourself or your team. And one of the topics that I've been seeing pop up every once in a while here, as I'm just cruising through LinkedIn or talking to different folks in the industry, is marketing at scale, and what most founders get wrong. And I'm not talking just about first-time founders either. I'm talking about first, second, third-time founders. What is it that most founders, when they start approaching their marketing strategy, do incorrectly? And then we're going to dig into what they can do to fix it. But first, I want you to talk about, what do you see when they're doing things wrong to start?
Yes, thank you so much. I think this is a really interesting question. And I guess so. To help narrow the answer down, then
Right.
when they start, because people get marketing wrong at scale when they're in the later stages. At every single stage, maybe of funding or existence, marketing can often go in the wrong direction.
Absolutely.
But just narrowing down then into the question, where do people start? Now, often I think founders in particular can confuse marketing activity with marketing impact.
100%.
And what I mean by this is, like, people often, or founders can often confuse noise, marketing noise with marketing momentum. So often it's not about doing more things, it's about focusing on the things and building systems that can be repeatable and can scale. So this isn't necessarily just about chasing short-term results. It's about learning and understanding the buyer in as many ways as possible, so that you can actually, drive repeatable success. Because the goal isn't necessarily to always hit the short-term target. It's about understanding why things are the way that they are, so
Mhm.
that you can either double down or pull back. And I think the focus that often founders do, yeah, the mistake that founders often make is not focusing enough on really trying to learn and understand the prospect through a marketing lens or through a buying lens,
Good point.
per se. So I mean, that kind of concept um, plays out in many different ways. So, like, let me try and like walk through some of those ways, because I think often founders can chase tactics instead of strategy. So they might like jump into a particular channel without a clear strategy around it, um, or really understanding who their like best customer is. Um, so the point there is kind of like somebody in the early stages might fall into a trap where it's like, we need to now turn marketing on and start scaling. And they might turn to a channel where a bottom of funnel channel, maybe it's paid search, and say, right, let's start here and let's scale.
Okay.
And so obviously we're a demand generator. We see this quite often. And sometimes that's not the worst starting point for some
No.
companies.
Right.
But if you only ever focus and look at marketing through the singular lens, what you'll find is you quickly become obsessed around short-term results, and you almost forget to build brand and forget to consider how you're positioned and who you are for. We work with a company, I won't obviously name them, who has scaled significantly on one channel, and and that is like paid search. So it's like everything is really obsessed and inbound, and in that can take you so far. But once you've done this for a number of years, you quickly find yourself in a situation, and it's like, who are we actually for? Because if you only focus on like channels like paid search, you're capturing people based on the solutions that they're searching and their intent, but they're not necessarily right for your business in the long term. So it can often create this effect. In the short term, things, it looks like you're buying your growth and you're able to scale.
Okay.
But if those customers don't stay for years, often you'll create a churn problem, and which translates into a positioning problem, and then you don't really understand who your best fit customer is. So I think to solve like the consideration here is like founders must really understand uh, where they sit within a market and how they differentiate from others. And the best way to really do this is like define a point of view, and define an enemy. Like, who are you not for?
There you
Because
go.
I think that is so important to keep the business on the train tracks going in the same direction. Because often, if you don't define who you're not for, you'll be selling into people you shouldn't be selling into, and you create other problems that only really surface 12 months down the line. So I think that's like, I don't know what your thoughts are, Sam. I'm sure you've come across this many times before as well, but I see that as a significant mistake people make.
There were so many good points that you made in there, and I jotted down a couple notes. But so the biggest thing about tactics, so people can jump right into tactics without having a strategy or mistaking lots of activity for pushing the flywheel and having momentum. My my number one saying that I will say, I'll probably say this 100 more times, is followers don't equal dollars. Followers do not equal
Yeah,
dollars, but the full funnel does, right? So yes,
yeah,
followers are part of your strategy, but they are not going to be the things that actually get you dollars. It is going to take a long time before they actually turn into a deal that then ultimately
yeah,
closes. I mean, when you think of all the steps that someone walks through and the opportunity to lose them in
yeah,
that spot. So there's a lot of work that happens between followers and dollars. So like I said, the funnel
yeah,
is there. Um, the other thing, and I would like you to go into this a little bit more. You talked a lot about ICP, and
Yeah.
mistaking, which you've also helped my company at one point with this, fallen into a mistake of thinking about that your deals that are closing are your best long-term customers, right? And
Yeah.
so then how do you identify who are your best customers? How do you use data to do that? And I know this is going to be a long answer, Christian. That's okay. This is great stuff. But how do you identify who your best repeat customers are and then start to replicate them at the top of the buying journey as
Yeah.
opposed to getting the ones that come in and then you lose them after 6
Yeah. 100%. So the way that we solve this as an agency, and the way that companies need to try and solve this, is by peeling back the layers of your data. And when I say your data, what I actually mean is the full bow tie, right? So not just the marketing funnel, which would be move people from leads to MQLs right down to close one. I'm not just talking about that. I'm talking about also the people that, onboard successfully, expand and stay for a multitude of years. So it's about really understanding firstly, a high level, what your metrics look like across that whole boat. Like how many people are you able to close, and how many of those actually go on to expand or stay? These metrics that you can analyze. Generally speaking, net revenue retention is a good measure for success. The lifetime value of a customer in terms of dollars, but also uh, time is a good
months.
indicator for success.
Mhm.
So it's important to understand that at the very highest level. But what's more important when you're trying to figure out who your ICP is you start to peel this back, peel the onion layers back, so to speak. So you understand not only as a business what these metrics look like and how you stack up against other companies of a similar size, with a similar average contract value, but you understand this within your segments. And what I mean by your segments are, how does this look with against the different customer sizes? So maybe you sell to SMBs, to mid-market, to enterprise. How do the numbers change across the whole bow tie by your segment? Maybe there's other variables that impact these metrics. It could be you're selling multiple products. It could be different markets. So certain markets might perform wildly different if, for example, you don't have much brand affinity in a particular location in the world.
Mhm.
Um, all of these things can quickly help you understand who should we be selling, where should we be focused. Often people don't go this far and peel back that many layers, so they just understand it on the surface. But when you start to peel it back, you quickly get the answer where you should be pivoting towards.
Mhm.
Often for some companies, it might be a certain product needs scaling over another product. Coming back to that market point, it might be that, one market we're performing really well. How can we either scale that market more or replicate the success from the things that we've done in this market to other markets?
Mhm.
So the answers often lie really in the deeper layers of the data. And that's kind of the thing that we love to get into as an agency, because often people aren't digging this further, because it doesn't really have an owner. It kind of rolls up to the CEO, and the CEO's got many things to do. So has the CMO. So all of these things often don't get dug into because the structures aren't often there to facilitate this type of analysis.
No, there's so many cross-functional roles that are responsible
Yeah.
for gathering the data that you just talked about,
Yeah.
especially in that full bow tie. So just making sure that your data is clean, which is another thing that I've seen
Yeah.
early founders fall into a trap of. It's a
Yeah.
tomorrow problem, right? So if we're just get things in the CRM, it's not a big deal. We'll clean it up another time. So just getting the data across the full bow tie in
Yeah.
a clean way, and then working together as a team to analyze it and making it's company's data, not team's
Yeah.
data. That makes
Yes.
a difference. And that doesn't often happen. That is something it is a trap for
Yeah.
sure.
And we're kind of seeing companies respond to this by creating go-to-market teams,
Right.
which essentially require that cross-functional alignment between sales, marketing, and customer success. Because
Mhm.
ultimately, those three functions are responsible for the customer journey end to end. So companies putting in a leader, a go-to-market team, um, are going some way in solving this problem because they understand it's important.
Right.
Um, I can take this one back then to some of the other mistakes because I think we drilled into that one, Sam.
Yeah.
Um, I think another thing that founders often mistake when trying to scale is optimizing for leads and not revenue. This kind of really aligns with the first point. If you are only focusing on top of the funnel and if you're only trying to feed your sales team as many leads as possible, you can quickly find that leads don't flow through the funnel
Mhm.
equally. And it's understanding that in a deep way is really important. And again, it's the same type of thing. Understand, is this particular initiative or channel, is it particular market? What do the conversion rates look like across all of the different variables inside your company?
Mhm.
Because understanding that will give you the opportunity to fix a broken area or a bottleneck in the funnel, or B, it will help you understand where you should be focusing and where you should be trying to scale, like in terms of just dollar allocation. Um, is another consideration. I think that's that. This one feels to me like it's a problem that is now being solved by the masses. But
Mhm.
there was a period of time where this was not uniform,
No.
and it was a big problem and created, ultimately created like bloated funnels and poor, um, I, I guess, a poor alignment between marketing and sales.
Oh, absolutely. I joke all the time that I could spend my entire career just fixing the issues between marketing and sales, and that's the truth, and mostly because of things like this. And it's
Yeah,
because not all MQLs, the standard for a very long time, not all MQLs are created equal, right?
yeah,
And then the other thing that I always like to say is that the MQLs, any type of lead scoring, right? Any type of lead scoring, my
yeah,
favorite thing to say about that, like the show Whose Line Is It Anyway? The game is made up and the points don't matter. It's all based on something that someone thought would be a good idea, and so that's exactly what we end
yeah,
up with is thinking that all MQLs are created equal, all leads are created equal, and that's not true. You also get what you measure. That's the other thing. So if you make a mandate that your sales team needs to
yeah,
vet
yeah,
200 leads, you're going to get quality of all size, all
yeah,
types. So you're spot on with that. You're right.
yeah, 100%. And I guess the other mistake that so the other mistake that founders make is they ignore brand too early, or
Yes.
don't look at brand as or look at brand through the lens of like brand is brand awareness ads, and that is not brand.
Right.
That is like enterprise company, like hundreds of millions in ARR, now recognize they need to try and win market share by just creating air cover. That is not what most scale ups need to be thinking brand as. Um, it's very different. Brand is everywhere. Um, brand, I think, is just about building trust and authority in as many places as you possibly can. In as
Mhm.
uh, through multiple initiatives. I think brand is your positioning. Brand is like do you have a strong point of view on the problem that you're solving, and that is your brand. It's kind of the DNA that runs inside a company. So often when people don't think about brand or when they don't think about that positioning, they really struggle with brand because they can't differentiate, and essentially they're another solution on the production line of companies that all offer very similar things at similar
Right.
prices without much differentiation.
It's so easy to fall into that trap too, to
Mhm.
ignore brand.
Yeah,
And
it is.
I mean, that's why the entire industry, B2B industry, fell into it for so many years, right? It's because when you put in X dollars, you get X leads, which gives you X dollars is a very finite type of formula to follow. And it's really
Yeah,
easy to start focusing on that, especially as marketers, we have discretionary
yeah,
budget. We're one of the only, well, actually, I think we are the only part of an organization, maybe HR, that gets discretionary budget and certainly a lot more to the tunes of millions of dollars. And so when you're talking about the justification for that, it's very easy, especially early on when you're bootstrapped,
Yeah.
to start looking at, oh, if I put this many dollars in, this many dollars out, and this ambiguous thing off to the side where what do my
Yeah.
logos look like? Although, please, no, the brand people don't come after me. I know that a brand is way more than just your logo. And like
Yeah.
Christine just said, it's the DNA of your business. But don't think about that at all. And spending money on things that are almost they're considered frivolous, or it can be
Yeah.
considered frivolous, and that's just a big mistake early on. You
Yeah.
really want your DNA of your business to shine. You're right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think this is going to become even more important in the next few years than it has been. Like, I think there's early signs that people are recognizing the need to make this shift away from just being focused
Yeah.
on pipeline generating marketing activity, which, is really important, but it's not the only thing. And I think the reason that there's going to be this shift is I think some of the traditional ways that companies drive short-term pipeline are being disrupted. So, like,
Yes,
look at the search landscape, for example.
exactly.
Like, Google is losing its market share. More and more people are now defaulting to LLMs. I think the stat recently that I've been sharing around is 29% of B2B buyers start with an LLM over Google now.
Yeah, right.
And that's a huge pattern that's only going to grow. Now, when you think about how does this impact your marketing mix, or how does this impact how you think about marketing? Well, all of a sudden you've gone from a position of being able to buy growth, often inefficiently, through channels where you could go after people who are searching for a solution. Now, it's that foundation is not as strong as it used to be. You have to then be making sure that you have a strong brand so that you are present across different LLMs.
Mhm.
Um, and those LLMs, they're not just working in the way that a traditional search engine used to work. They're not built on links. They're crawling all kinds of sources across the web, whether that is YouTube, social profiles.
Mhm.
They're looking at Reddit, Quora, um, as well as the traditional search channels like Google.
Right.
So all of a sudden, the staple, like short-term fast activity that you could once deploy is not the same anymore. And you're going to need to think about, okay, well, what is our broader presence, and what are we actually communicating to people who aren't in market to buy? How are we showing up to them? How are we adding value to future buyers and helping them with the problems that they experienced in their jobs? I think all of these things now are going to grow in importance. I mean, they've always been important, but I think you can't hide from them anymore. I think is the point. So I think there's going to be a shift, and consequently, there'll be a shift in the way that marketing teams are measured. They'll still be expected to deliver revenue. I don't think that's going to go away. But I think what's going to become more important is brand salience and getting a deeper understanding of how present is my brand when people are thinking about this category. Like, how do we show up? Where do we show up? Do we show up? I think is going to be really important in the future.
Exactly. And the shift is going to be a fun one to watch because I think
Yeah,
what happens. So absolutely agree with everything you just said, but I just taking a step back. I think that what happened was all of the B2B companies just started to sound like each other, look like each other,
yeah,
sound like each other. I joked about I brought my CEO to a trade show floor one time and I said, "Look down this row. This is the reason why we are not using blue and purple in our logo. That's the
yeah,
reason why." And you couldn't tell everyone just was like this sea of this exact same thing. And even websites, which I spent a lot of time in my career doing just digital marketing for and websites, that you could take a logo off of a web
yeah.
page and you could slap your competitor's logo there and you wouldn't be able to tell that it wasn't your
No,
site, right? Every that
yeah,
happens all the time. And so whoever had the most amount of money to spend in a particular category, whoever had the best Google paid ad strategist, they were the ones who were winning. And now
yeah,
the LLMs have leveled, completely
yeah,
demolished and leveled that playing field. And so you really don't have a choice. That is the way that you're going to make your brand stand out. So
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. And it kind of, I guess what it means is there really is no silver bullets
Oh,
anymore.
no.
There's no, there's no, there's no one channel that's going to create explosive growth. It is very much about, building repeatable programs that compound over time.
And
And
every
I
time
think,
we think we get one, the algorithm changes,
yeah,
something changes, and it just gets ripped out from underneath us, and we need to start all over again. So
I know,
yeah, every single time. It's great.
I know. We're certainly living in, yeah, changing times, but most software companies are experiencing this as well.
For sure.
From their product suite, there's a huge threat to everybody's existence in the software space. Yeah, it's been certainly interesting times, but brand as a differentiator is absolutely critical, I think, in 2025 historically, but even more so in the future.
Absolutely. Do you have any final thoughts for startup founders? Anything else that you want to share? Any mistakes that they make that you see folks make?
I think I I think the closing note really would be like scaling marketing isn't about doing more. It's about doing what matters consistently and
Yes.
and building on top of that over and over again. I don't think turning things off and turning things on. Yeah, there's never going to be a silver bullet. Things take time, and it is very much about compounding initiatives on top of each other in order to create that long-lasting effect.
The amount of times that I have had a founder ask me, is 3 weeks going to be enough time to see results in this campaign? Sometimes it's even less than that.
Yeah,
Is this
yeah,
going to be enough time? Do you think we'll get leads in 6 months? All of those. So I'll add that to the list from something
yeah,
for me is not giving everything enough time. Obviously, there's a lot of pressure
yeah.
for CEOs and founders, but you really need to give things enough time. But
You really
Christian.
do.
Yeah. It's that I think is number one in my book anyway. At least I've been on the other side of it enough times. Anyway, thank you so much for being here and chatting with me about this. I know we could have gone on for days just talking about what's happening in the market and mistakes that you see founders make at scale when marketing. And it was a pleasure to chat with you. So thank you for being here today, Christian.
Thank you so much for having me on it. It's been enjoyable. So thank you.
Yes, absolutely. This has been Scale Without Chaos. Thank you, and we'll see you next week. Thank you for listening to Scale Without Chaos. If you got value from today's episode, do me a favor. Hit that follow button, share the episode with someone scaling a business, or leave a review. It helps more than you know. You can find more content, free resources, and behind-the-scenes takes on LinkedIn and Instagram at Scale Without Chaos. And if you want weekly insights straight to your inbox, head over to balsamandcedar.com and sign up for the newsletter. Keep building. We'll see you next week.